Now we proceed our discussion on introduction to persons. This is still part of your prelim exam. So let's define what status is. Status is the legal condition or class to which one belongs in society, or the legal and juridical position of the individual in society, which determines the nature and number of rights of an individual. The status is material in order to know the legal implications, because every legal implication that would affect you, your rights, and your privileges will be based or dependent on the status that you have. Status can be political and civil status may be grouped into three classes. First, as a member of society. Second, as a member of family. And third, as himself. First, as a member of society, a person or a civil status, you can be considered as a resident or a non-resident. So when we say residence, it means your intention to physically present in a particular place, in contrast to a domicile, which, although it does not necessarily require physical appearance or physical presence in a particular place, but the qualification is that you still have the intention of going back or returning to that place. And we know that residence is a requirement insofar as, for instance, running for positions in the elections, running in the legislative department, executive department, etc. Also, as a member of society, you can be a citizen or an alien, whether you are a citizen of the Philippines or a citizen of foreign country. That is, yeah, with respect to, let's say, for example, you're a former Filipino and then you became a naturalized American citizen, then that in that case you'll be considered as an alien insofar as Philippine law is concerned. Now, as a member of family, you can be single, married, widowed, or divorced. So single, kung wala ka mga asawa, mag-isa ka lang. Married, that means you have complied with the requirements under Article 1 of the Family Code. Okay, katong you should have the essential requisites, the formal requisites, such as, for example, yeah, the voluntary consent, the 18 years of age, the authority of the solemnizing officer, etc., etc. A widow, that is when, for instance, the other spouse died, then the person or the spouse or the other spouse shall be considered as widow. Divorced also. Okay. However, in the Philippines, we don't have divorce except for Filipinas or Filipino people who are married to foreigners. Because in the case of Republic versus Molina, di ba, when when a Filipino is married to a foreigner, that Filipino can initiate a divorce proceedings even abroad, no? So in that case, for as long as it's valid in the country where you initiated the divorce proceeding, then that can be considered as valid also here in the Philippines. As a member of family, you can be a parent, a child, brother, or sister. It has an implication insofar as inheritance and succession rights are concerned. Legitimate, illegitimate, and adopted. And as himself, we must determine your age, whether you're a minor or uh, whether you have attained the age of majority, that is 18 years old. So if you're a minor, what's the implication? How is it different from the legal capacity of a person who is already of age or who is already 18 years old? Is there a difference with respect to entering into a contract, entering into agreement, etc., etc.? Sex, whether male or female, and of course your mental condition, whether sane or insane. So these are the classes of civil status. Okay. Let us differentiate juridical capacity from capacity to act. Juridical capacity is a fitness of a person to be the subject of legal relations, while capacity to act is the power to do acts with legal effects. For example, uh, si A is pregnant and then may baby siya sa loob. Now, the aunt of the baby who is inside the womb of the mother, okay, wanted to donate a car to the baby. Okay. So can that unborn child be subject of juridical capacity? The answer is yes. Okay, because it's a fitness of a person to be the subject of legal relation. So you can still donate to an unborn child. Okay. Power to do acts with legal effect. This arises when you have reached the age of majority, such as when you can enter into contract, you can enter into voluntary agreements, okay? And his actions, these contracts and agreements has a legal implications. They have legal effects also. Juridical capacity is passive, while capacity to act is active. Juridical capacity is the aptitude for the holding and enjoyment of rights, while the aptitude to exercise rights refers to the capacity to act. And the capacity to act is must be acquired. So therefore, you must acquire the 18 years old requirement. So if you are 16 and you enter into marriage, that's not allowed. So you don't have the capacity to act or to enter into a marriage contract. In juridical capacity, it's inherent in natural persons. It cannot necessarily be acquired. Okay. So for juridical capacity, it is lost upon death. How it is lost? Kung mamatay na ka. So once you die, of course, you cannot donate to a dead person. Okay. You cannot give or enter into contract with a dead person. How about capacity to act? It is lost through death and other causes. Okay. For juridical capacity, it can exist without capacity to act. So let's say, for example, a 5-year-old kid can be a subject of a donation from his or her aunt, tita, tito, uncle, sa pa ba, friend, no? He or she can accept donation. However, it does not necessarily require na he or she must have capacity to act. Okay, although in that case he can receive donation, but he cannot enter into contractual arrangements or such as what I said, no, the contract of marriage. In the capacity to act, it must exist without juridical. It must exist with juridical capacity, no. So let's say, for example, um, a dead person who is 25 years old, very able, no, a Pulse graduate, for example. Pero if you're dead already, no, you don't have the existence of a juridical capacity, and you don't have uh, so in that case, no, you cannot anymore exercise your right in that case. For juridical capacity, it cannot be limited or restricted, but the capacity to act can be restricted or limited, such as when, for example, yes, you have the capacity to act to marry, but if you are already married, in that case, it can be restricted because that would amount to bigamy already, no? So let's say A, he married to B, and then B who has the capacity to act. Can he marry another person aside from his spouse? You cannot, no? So it's part of the restriction. For juridical capacity, it cannot be limited or restricted. So what are the kinds of persons in the civil code? We have natural persons and juridical persons. Natural persons refer to individuals or human beings who are created by procreation. We, no, as human beings, we are natural persons. But juridical persons are artificial, meaning we cannot see it physically. Di nato siya makitaan. We cannot even touch this, no? It's an abstract entity created through laws. Like for example, uh, the a corporation, for example. Corporation is a person, but it's a juridical person. Office of the government is a person. It can be subject to legal effects and whatnot, but we cannot touch it. We cannot touch the existence of corporation because it is created by virtue of a law, by virtue of incorporation granted by the government or by the state. ABS-CBN, exactly why they need to have a franchise because they're a corporation, it's a juridical person. Kaya nga makakasuhan natin sila, tayo din, pwede silang mag-file ng case sa atin if let's say in cases of besmirch of reputation, anyway, we'll discuss that later on. But yeah, when we say juridical person, it's artificial, but it's existing. It's a person ba na abstract because its existence is there only because the law creates it. Okay. Article 40 of the Civil Code provides that the conceived child shall be considered born for all purposes that are favorable to it, provided it be born later with the conditions specified in the following article. That is that the fetus be alive at the time it is completely delivered from the mother's womb as defined in Article 41 of the Civil Code. So if the child or if the child inside the mother's womb was delivered, okay, and the mother has or the child has an intrauterine life of at least 7 months, then the fetus is considered born if if he or she is delivered from the mother's womb alive. That means pag panganak sa iya, buhi siya. Okay? Now, how about if the mother has an intrauterine life of less than 7 months? The requirement under the Civil Code is that the child, the unborn or the fetus must be alive for at least 24 hours. And this proviso, however, is not a condition precedent to the right of the conceived child. For if it were, the first part of Article 40 would become entirely useless and ineffective. Article 41 of the Civil Code, for civil purposes, the fetus is considered born if it is alive at the time it is completely delivered from the mother's womb. However, if the fetus had an intrauterine life of less than 7 months, kung 6 months imong pagbuntis ng anak na ka, okay, it is not deemed born if it dies within 24 hours. So dapat, pag panganak nimo, let's say 6 months ang bata, and then anak nimo siya today, no? At 8, tonight at 8 p.m. Dapat ugma sa gabi ibuhi gihapon siya for at least 24 hours in order to consider the fetus alive. Or in order for us to consider the child born. Okay. After its complete delivery from the maternal womb. The removal of the fetus from the mother's womb, which may be done naturally or artificially by surgery. Before birth, the fetus is not a person but merely a part of the internal organs of the mother. But because of the expectancy that it may be born, the law protects it and preserves its rights, making its legal existence, if born alive, retroact to the moment of its conception. Okay. So here's the summary of what I was looking for. The 7 months or more, no, if the fetus or if the fetus has an intrauterine life of so since birth determines personality, an aborted fetus never acquired legal rights or civil personality because it was not alive at the time of delivery from the mother's womb. So kung nagpalaglag ka ng bata through abortion, no, you aborted the fetus, then that child is not considered alive, or neither can the child be the subject of legal relations. No damages can be claimed in behalf of the unborn child since an action for pecuniary damages on account of personal injury or death pertains primarily to the one injured. So the child cannot claim damages or civil damages whatsoever because, again, he or the child, the fetus has not yet acquired its personality. This is not to say that the parents of an aborted fetus are not entitled to collect any damages at all, but such damages must be those inflicted directly upon them as distinguished from the injury or violation of the rights of the aborted fetus. For example, moral damages for their loss and the disappointment of their parental expectation. So the fetus itself was not considered born or alive because it's dead already when it was delivered from the mother's womb. But this is without prejudice, of course, to the right of the parents to collect any damages if necessary. So death under Article 42 of the Civil Code, civil personality is extinguished by death. The effect of death upon the rights and obligations of the deceased is determined by law, by contract, and by bill. So what is a juridical person? It is an abstract being formed for the realization of collective purposes to which the law has granted capacity for our rights and obligations. The entity must be recognized as having its own rights and obligations which are not that of its component members. So juridical capacity is not acquired if, for example, the persons who formed or who created that juridical entity has no capacity to act or has no capacity to make legal relations. Its personality is manifested only in the realm of patrimonial relations. It has no family and personal rights, no? Na may pariente ang corporation or ang association or ang isa ka partnership. Wala naman, di ba? So again, no, it's an abstract being. It's created not necessarily because of the certification or the consent of the state that it is already created, but the fact that the legal relations uh, created or the legal effect is due to the persons who created behind this abstract being. Na napod sila yung capacity to act na mabuhat o corporation engage into business. For example, no? Pwede ba na mga bata, grade, let's say, 3-year-old, no? Magbuhat sila corporation? Okay? Di ba dili? Okay? So the following are juridical persons: the state and its political subdivisions, other corporations, institutions, entities for public interest or purpose created by law, Their personality begins as soon as they have been constituted according to law. Corporations, partnerships, and associations for private interest or purpose to which the law grants a juridical personality separate and distinct from that of each shareholder, partner, or member. So this is the doctrine of separate juridical personality. It means that when, for example, four people who created the corporation, for example, and the corporation has a liability, let's say Banco, no, four people created a BDO, let's say in Panakan branch, and then that bank in Panakan branch went bankruptcy. Okay, so na bankrupt, and then the bank has a lot of liabilities, like they have borrowed money around, let's say, 1 billion or so. Okay, so in that case, can we collect the asset of these four people if the bank in itself cannot pay already the money they owed or the money they have borrowed? The answer is no, because the answer is the doctrine of juridical personality. So when you create a corporation, a partnership, or any juridical entity, you must apply the separation between these two entities. Na you as a corporator or a stockholder, for example, negosyante ka, tapos marami kang sasakyan, marami kang assets, marami kang property, and if so happen that your corporation na bankrupt, na purdoy, so in that case, the creditor, katong nangutang, cannot collect this utang from the personal properties of the businessmen or the stockholders of that corporation or entity. Okay, I hope you get that. So we'll end our discussion on that.